You know, there is something absolutely fascinating and perhaps a bit sinister about the way our culture treats the act of being alone. From the moment we can understand language, we have been conditioned to believe that solitude is a problem, a defect, a disease that needs to be cured. When you see a man eating alone in a restaurant or sitting by himself on a park bench watching the leaves fall, what is the immediate assumption? We pity him. We think, oh, something must be wrong. He must be lonely. He must be unwanted. We treat solitude as if it were a failure of social adaptation. But I want to suggest to you today that this fear of being alone, this pathological need to always be surrounded by the herd, is one of the most pernicious lies that society perpetuates, and it is a lie that keeps people enslaved in ways they do not even begin to recognize. Why does society demonize solitude? Why does it look at the hermit, the wanderer, the solitary thinker with such suspicion? The answer, my friends, is quite simple and quite disturbing. Society does not want you to be comfortable alone, because a person who is genuinely at peace with solitude is a person who cannot be controlled. Let us look deeply into the structure of our civilization. If you peel back the layers, you will see that our entire economy, our entire social structure is built on a foundation of dependency. It is built on the fabrication of voids. The merchants need you to believe that happiness comes from purchasing things. The entertainers need you to believe that fulfillment comes from constant stimulation. The institutions of romance and marriage need you to believe that you are a broken half, desperately searching for another half to make you whole. All of these systems rely on one fundamental assumption, that you are insufficient as you are, that there is a hole in your soul that must be filled from the outside. But what happens if you discover that there is no hole? What happens if you sit in silence and realize that you are fundamentally complete? The moment you discover this, the machinery of society loses its grip on you. A person who is comfortable being alone does not need to buy things to fill an inner emptiness. They do not need constant noise to drown out their own thoughts. They do not need to cling desperately to toxic relationships out of a terror of an empty room. In other words, they become useless to the marketplace of desire. They cannot be manipulated through their loneliness. They cannot be scared into conformity. They have stepped out of the game. And to the game masters, that is a very dangerous thing indeed. This is why from the earliest stages of childhood we are taught to fear our own company. Think about it. A child who prefers to play alone in the corner of the garden, lost in their own imagination, is often viewed with concern. Parents worry. Teachers worry. Why isn't he socializing? Is he depressed? Is he antisocial? We push the child into the group. We force them to seek validation from the crowd. We teach them that their value lies in their reflection in the eyes of others, not in their own being. We never give equal emphasis to teaching children how to be content in their own company. We never teach the art of solitude. And so we raise generations of adults who are terrified of silence. Adults who cannot sit in a room for 10 minutes without reaching for a distraction. Adults who will stay in abusive situations, who will compromise their dignity, who will betray their own souls just to avoid the feeling of being alone. We have created a society of people who are running away from themselves, and as long as you are running, you are consuming, you are conforming, you are remaining safely within the boundaries of the herd. But here is what society doesn't want you to discover, and this is the crucial distinction that most people miss. Solitude is not loneliness. These are two entirely different states of being. They are as different as water and fire. Loneliness is a state of poverty. It is a feeling of lack. It is the painful awareness that something is missing. It is the beggar standing at the gate holding out an empty bowl, pleading for someone, anyone, to drop a coin of attention into it. Loneliness is anxious. It is desperate. It is weak. But solitude, solitude is a state of royalty. Solitude is not the absence of company. It is the presence of oneself. It is fullness. It is completeness. It is the recognition that you do not need anything outside of yourself to be whole. When you are in true solitude, you are not waiting for anyone. You are not lacking anything. You are simply resting in the vast richness of your own being. The mystics have always understood this. The great spiritual teachers throughout history, the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, Jesus in the wilderness, the Taoist sages in their mountain huts, they all withdrew into solitude. Not because they hated humanity, but because they understood that in the noise of the marketplace it is impossible to hear the song of the universe. They understood that to find the truth, one must first face oneself. Now let us be honest. Why is it so hard to be alone? Why do most people panic when the noise stops? It is because when you remove the distractions, when the party is over, when the guests have gone, when the work is done, you are left with the one person you have been avoiding, yourself. In the silence, the suppressed thoughts come bubbling up, the anxieties you buried, the questions you ignored, the parts of yourself you have rejected. The shadow self, as Jung would call it, steps out of the corner, and this can be terrifying. It is like entering a dark room that you haven't cleaned in years. You don't know what you will find there. This is why people run. They turn on the noise. They seek out the crowd. They drink. They busy themselves with trivial tasks, anything to avoid that meeting, anything to avoid looking into the mirror of the soul. But if you can stay, if you can find the courage to sit through that initial discomfort, something miraculous happens. The noise begins to settle, the dust begins to clear, and you start to make friends with yourself. You discover that the monsters in the dark were just your own fears casting shadows on the wall. You discover a depth, a creativity, a wisdom that was drowning in the chatter of society. You discover that you are actually quite interesting company. Here is another secret about solitude. It is the birthplace of everything great. Look at the history of human achievement, the great works of art, the profound philosophies, the scientific breakthroughs, the timeless music. They did not come from a committee meeting. They did not come from a crowded room. They came from individuals who had the courage to be alone. Creativity requires a certain spaciousness. It requires a mind that is not constantly reacting to external stimuli. When you are constantly connected to the hive mind, constantly absorbing the opinions, the news, the fears of the collective, you cannot think your own thoughts. You become an echo chamber. You repeat what you have heard. You mimic what you have seen. But in solitude, the mind clears. You stop reacting and start creating. You tap into a source of intelligence that lies deeper than your social conditioning. You begin to hear your own voice distinct from the chorus of the crowd. This is why dictators and authoritarian regimes have always feared the solitary thinker. They want constant group activity. They want collective chanting. They want you to be part of the mass, because in the mass you are asleep. In solitude you wake up. Now you might ask, but Alan, doesn't this lead to isolation? Humans are social creatures. Don't we need love? And here we come to the most beautiful paradox of all. It is only when you are truly comfortable being alone that you can have a genuine relationship with another human being. Consider the alternative. If you cannot bear to be alone, then you need people. And when you need people, you use people. You use them as a drug to soothe your anxiety. You use them as a prop to hold up your ego. You approach relationships like a starving man approaches a loaf of bread. You are not appreciating the bread. You are devouring it to stay alive. This creates a relationship of dependency, of clinging, of fear. I love you because I need you. I love you because I cannot survive without you. This is what passes for romance in our world, but it is not love. It is parasitism. But when you are comfortable in your solitude, when you know how to fill your own cup, you approach relationships differently. You do not need the other person. You choose them. And that is a world of difference. I do not need you to complete me. I am already complete. But I enjoy your presence. I want to share my overflow with you. This is the only foundation for true love. love between two whole individuals. Two sovereign beings who come together not out of lack but out of abundance. Two circles touching, not two broken halves trying to glue themselves together. When you are no longer afraid of losing people, you can finally love them freely. You can let them be who they are because your happiness does not depend on their behavior. So you see, the capacity for solitude is a superpower. It is the ultimate freedom. When you can be alone without being lonely, you are invincible. You cannot be bought because you don't need their toys. You cannot be threatened with exclusion because you are happy in your own company. You cannot be manipulated by public opinion because you have found your own truth. You become a sovereign entity. You walk through the world, but you are not of the world. You can participate in the games of society if you wish. You can play the roles, you can enjoy the party, but you are not trapped by it. You can leave at any moment. You carry your home within you. So I invite you to conduct an experiment. Do not look at solitude as a punishment. Look at it as a practice. Make space for it in your life. Carve out moments where you unplug from the machine, where you step away from the demands of the household, the expectations of the workplace, the noise of the street. Go into your room or go into the woods. Sit with yourself. Watch the discomfort arise and let it pass. Watch the boredom arise and let it pass. Wait for the sediment to settle in the glass of water. And in that clarity you will find something that the crowd can never give you. You will find yourself. And once you have found yourself, you will realize that you were never really alone. You were just waiting for the most important guest to arrive. And that, my friends, is the secret. The universe is not outside of you, it is you. And in the depth of your own solitude, you meet the whole world.